A big thank you, Professor Abu Talib Khan, for your leadership and assurances. Now, I would request Professor Sugata Bose, Distinguished Gardiner Professor of Oceanic History and Affairs, Harvard University, USA, and Distinguished Member of the Parliament, who is a versatile historian who needs actually no introduction, and he has traversed the area as a versatile historian, which is very uncommon these days. So, for example, he carried out research on social history, economic history, political history, and recently he is also engaging himself in the cultural, civilizational dimensions. That is very important. So it's a very comprehensive approach towards research, and not only that, his prolificity and scholarship is manifested in several publications, so I'm not delving deep into that. But I would mention that from the very beginning, he is not only the Gardiner Professor of Oceanic History, but in the ocean, like a lighthouse, he is directing us, he is guiding us. So our heartfelt thanks to Professor Bose once again. So Professor Bose, please deliver the inaugural address. Professor Bose.
Assalamu alaikum. I am deeply grateful to the Shah Abu Bakr Siddique Memorial Committee of Purpura Sharif for inviting me to deliver the inaugural address at this fascinating international seminar. A few months ago, I had the good fortune of spending a joyous Eid in the serene and peaceful atmosphere of Purpura Sharif and receiving the blessings of Allama Pir Muhammad Saifuddin Siddique. It is rare for devotees and admirers of a religious leader to invite historians and scholars in exploring the past. But that is precisely what the organizers of this unique event, led by Sayyid Muhammad Bahauddin, wanted to do. His younger brother, Nizam, who is also my younger brother, stayed in touch with me to ensure that I could join you at the ceremonial launch of the seminar this morning. In the august presence of distinguished scholars from foreign lands, I am delivering this inaugural address in English. I would like to begin, however, by reciting a Bengali translation by Dr. Muhammad Shahidullah of a beautiful verse composed in Persian by Pir Hazrat Shah Sufi Fateh Ali, who was a preceptor of Shah Abu Bakr Siddique. Jodi she ruper raja pa rakhe mor akhir pore, biliye dibo din duniya tar choroner dhulir tore, tar piriti jalaye niti poran emon buker majhe, agun para mor hahakar daye golaye pashanere. What a heartwarming invocation of the beauty and majesty of the Almighty. The life and times of Shah Pir Abu Bakr Siddique span nearly a century of socio-religious and educational reform from the mid-19th to the eve of World War II. He was a key intellectual figure who helped shape the contours of a Bengali Muslim ecumene that stretched across the Ganga and Brahmaputra deltas of eastern India. A great deal has been written on the Hindu and Brahmo elements of the creative Bengali engagement with modernity in the colonial era. Many aspects of that history are being celebrated in the bicentennial celebrations of Presidency University this month. We also know a fair amount about the efforts of the Muslim elites in North India, led by men like Syed Ahmad Khan and Maulana Shibli Numani, in the crafting of an Indian Muslim modernity. I hope this seminar will restore the balance somewhat by taking account of the Bengali Muslim cultural stirrings during that same period. Pir Abu Bakr Siddique was born in the aftermath of the Shahadat of Sayyid Ahmed of Rai Bareli and Shah Ismail in the northwest frontier of India. Even though the martyrs of Balakot perished in 1831, their ideological reverberations continued to be felt strongly during the middle decades of the 19th century. As late as 1871, W. Hunter wrote in his book, The Indian Musalmans, "For years a rebel colony has threatened our frontier, from time to time sending forth fanatic swarms who have attacked our camps, burned our villages, murdered our subjects, and involved our troops in 3 costly wars. Month by month, this hostile settlement across the border has been systematically recruited from the heart of Bengal." Like Syed Ahmad Khan, Pir Abu Bakr Siddique had to contend in his youth with British stereotypical notions of Muslim disloyalty and fanaticism. He died just before the passage of the Lahore Resolution calling for the creation of autonomous and sovereign states in the Muslim majority regions of northwestern and eastern India. He continued to live in the hearts of people in both Bengals, separated by the partition lines of 1947, and also of his numerous followers in Assam. In telling the life stories of spiritual leaders, it is not easy to disentangle biography from hagiography, and I think Tony Stewart will be speaking on this subject later on. Yet from the accounts I have read about Shah Abu Bakr Siddique, I can see clearly that in his youth he had an insatiable thirst for knowledge, and in his later years he was determined to disseminate education among the younger generation of undivided Bengal's Muslims. He mastered a huge corpus of hadith in Mecca and Medina. While being an adherent of the Hanafi school, he was learned in the treatises of all 4 schools of Muslim jurisprudence. He was well versed in the insights of various Sufi orders, including the Qadiriya, Chishtiya, and Naqshbandiya, gleaned from the Kitab of Abdul Qadir Jilani, Shah Waliullah, and also Karamat Ali. His primary place of work was undoubtedly Bengal, but he twice went on the Hajj. On the occasion of his second Hajj, he witnessed the hardships faced by Bengali Hajj pilgrims in Bombay. It is largely thanks to his efforts that Calcutta was reopened as a pilgrim port in 1926 after a 30-year hiatus, and a Hajj Enquiry Committee set up in the late 1920s. I have written about Hajj in that period in my book, 100 Horizons, in a chapter titled Pilgrim's Progress Under Colonial Rules. The map printed on your program places Purpura Sharif and the Mazar of Pir Abu Bakr Siddique at the center of an interregional arena of the Indian Ocean. So let me take you on a little tour of recent historiography of Muslims and modernity across the Indian Ocean since the publication of my book 100 Horizons, before returning you to Bengal. Islam is the desert, the famous French historian Fernand Braudel had proclaimed, echoing Esad Bey. This was to confuse the place of origin of the revelation, Aisha Jalal has argued, with the character of the religion and its associated way of life. She makes a counterclaim. Islam is the ocean. Islam traveled well by sea, on boats and ships, and not just by caravans. It did not arrive fully formed in the South Asian subcontinent, but rather was shaped by the river valleys and agricultural plains where it attracted the largest numbers of the faithful. It established an urban presence too, on the coasts and the interior. The entanglement of Islam with the agrarian environment of reclamation and cultivation in Bengal, as well as varied urban settings of rulership, trade and bazaars in the Gangetic Plain, has been well studied by historians of the late medieval and early modern periods. Placing Islam in its Indian Ocean context promises to offer fresh perspectives on its modern history in the age of European empire. Calcutta and Bombay rose to a position of preeminence, if not dominance, as colonial port cities in the world of Indian Ocean politics and commerce from the second decade of the 19th century, just before Abu Bakr Siddique was born. In a recent book, Niall Green has explored the Muslim experience with industrial modernity in Bombay between 1840 and 1915. Green seems to be in two minds as to whether Bombay Islam was cosmopolitan or not. The book opens dramatically with the collapse of a block of the Sitaram building in 1903, a disaster that was rumored to have been retribution for an insult offered by its Hindu owner and British customers at a bar on its ground floor to the shrine across the street of a saint named Pedro Shah, a Portuguese sailor who had converted to Islam. Green interprets his spectacular miracle as symptomatic of the larger pressures of cosmopolitan modernity that helped create a marketplace for religions in the city surrounding them. Bombay is seen to have emerged as the cosmopolis of the Indian Ocean. Muslim writings in trans-regional languages such as Persian, Urdu and Arabic circulated across the Western Indian Ocean as far as South Africa. These are analyzed to explore what is described as an industrial and cosmopolitan environment. Yet in summarizing his argument, Green takes a contradictory position. In the most industrialized, technological and cosmopolitan city of the West Indian Ocean, he asserts, the most successful religious productions were not modern, disenchanted Protestant Islams, but cults that were enchanted, hierarchical and ritualistic. They were neither uniform in characteristics nor cosmopolitan in outlook, but highly differentiated and parochially communitarian. They were neither reformed nor modernist, but customary and traditionalist. The deployment of the market model of a religious economy leads to a second contradiction. Muslims are said to have consumed the Islamic products and services on offer as rational agents. That seems to toss the enchanting quality of Bombay Islams into the Arabian Sea. An eagerness to contest the historian Christopher Bailey's thesis about the rise of the global uniformity of world religions in the course of the 19th century has led Green to exaggerate diversity and diversification. We need a better conceptual framework to make sense of the religious experience of subaltern groups in conditions of modernity. Instead of drawing a sharp dichotomy between the one and the many, reformist versus customary Islam, modernity against tradition, a subtler and better approach would be to accept the interplay of the singular and the plural, and the many accommodations between the supposedly reformist and customary strands of Islam. The interplay of the reformist and customary is evident in the teachings of Pir Abu Bakr Siddique. He called for reforms in many aspects, but he was in favor of Mazar Ziyarat, for example. The graves of Sufi saints were to be venerated. Muslim shrines, as we all know, drew large numbers of non-Muslim devotees, as in the case of the shrine of Haji Ali in Bombay and Maula Ali Shah in Calcutta. The Haji Ali shrine on the Bombay sea face was constructed in memory of a wealthy Bukhara merchant who gave up his worldly possessions to go for Hajj. The relevance of the Indian Ocean interregional space in modern times was underscored by the reconstruction of the Nakhoda Mosque in Calcutta under the patronage of the Kutchi Memons in 1926. Shah Abu Bakr Siddique had strong intellectual ties with the Nakhoda Mosque. Cosmopolitanism must not be confused with global uniformity. It may be possible to delineate the features of local cosmopolitanism emanating from Bombay or Calcutta or Hooghly into the Indian Ocean interregional arena, much in the same way that Eng Seng Ho has narrated so astutely in his book, The Graves of Tarim. The colonial port cities were by no means the only or even chief conduits of South Asian Islam's engagements with the wider Indian Ocean interregional arena in the 19th and 20th centuries. In Sunil Amrit's book, Crossing the Bay of Bengal, on Tamil migration, a relatively small coastal town of Nagaur emerges as the nodal point of the diffusion of a cosmopolitanism of the Tamil Muslim assortment across the Eastern Indian Ocean. The spiritual center is the Sufi mystic Shahul Hamid's Dargah or shrine, replicas of which can be found in Singapore and Penang. Seema Alavi's recent book evokes expressions of a Muslim cosmopolitanism in the interstices of the Ottoman and British empires during the late 19th century. She does so by following the itineraries and sifting through the textual productions of 5 Muslim men of religion, including Maulana Kairanvi, who fled India after the British crushed the 1857 rebellion. As long as the Ottoman Empire supplied an alternative locus of temporal sovereignty, these emigre had a space where they could articulate a global Muslim sensibility. Alavi sees this form of cosmopolitanism between empires as a challenge to the emerging power of the nation and a precursor to the idea of transnationalism in the 20th century. Said Ahmad Khan's voyage to the Hejaz on board the Baroda in 1869 and Maulana Shibli Numani's journey to the Ottoman domains in 1892 would take the expansive spatial imagination of a transnational Muslim world to a higher intellectual plane. While Amrit and Alavi pursue connections across the vast eastern and western zones of the Indian Ocean, Iftikhar Iqbal of Bangladesh focuses on Bengal or the Ganga-Brahmaputra deltaic tract and its articulation with broader Indian Ocean and global domains. These new contributions must be placed in the larger context of a development of immense significance for the 19th century world economy going on in the agrarian hinterlands of Asia. What was fashioned in the first half of the 19th century was a settled and sedentarized peasantry, which during its latter half produced primary products for a capitalist world market. Production relations based on settled peasant labor and migrant indentured or quasi-indentured labor came to be bound in a dialectical relationship. If Tamil peasant labor moved across the sea to Ceylon and Malaya, Bengali peasant labor in the densely populated East Bengal districts adopted 2 strategies of survival, as I have shown in my work on agrarian Bengal. First, Bengal smallholding peasantry turned to cultivating a more labor-intensive and higher-value cash crop, jute. Second, a certain sizable fraction among them migrated to the Brahmaputra Valley in the neighboring province of Assam. Nearly 1 million Bengali Muslim peasants went in search of jute lands from eastern Bengal to Assam in the first 3 decades of the 20th century. Iftikhar Iqbal views Bengal as a frontier of both the Indian Ocean and the South Asian landmass. The history of Bengalis, subalterns and elites alike, was not contained within the borders of Bengal in the age of British colonialism. The Bengali language, far from being confined to the level of a vernacular, rose as the vehicle of a universalist aspiration, not just in contestation with Urdu, but through a partnership marked by rivalry with Arabic. In the rise of Bengali, Pir Abu Bakr Siddique played a crucial role. He was proficient in English and Arabic, but privileged Bengali as the preferred language of education and communication. In the middle decades of the 19th century, Muslims in different regions of India had to contest the evangelical denunciation of Islam, especially disparaging accounts of the Prophet under colonial auspices by the likes of Karl Fander and William Muir. Aisha Jalal has shown in her book Partisans of Allah how Syed Ahmad Khan, Maulavi Chirag Ali, Syed Amir Ali and Maulana Shibli Nomani mounted a spirited defense of Islam and the Prophet after the publication of William Muir's 4 volumes titled Life of Muhammad between 1856 and 1861. Syed Ahmad Khan wrote 12 essays in Urdu, which were published in English translation as Essays on the Life of Muhammad in 1870. Categorizing Syed Ahmad's writings as an apologia, Aisha Jalal has argued, undermines their intellectual value and denies Muslims a right of response to ill-informed criticism. Syed Amir Ali initially wrote a book titled A Critical Examination of the Life and Teachings of Muhammad, which he later expanded into the more famous book, The Spirit of Islam. Like Amir Ali, Chirag Ali too wrote in English, while Shibli Nomani wrote his classic Siratul Nabi in Urdu. Shah Abu Bakr Siddique, along with his murids and khalifas, put up their oral and written defense against proselytization by Christian missionaries in Bengali. They may have been able to link the elite and subaltern domains of Muslim society better in Bengal than was the case in North India. My PhD student, Mo Banerjee, who is present in the audience, has studied the discourse of Munshi Meherullah, who was influenced by the Pir of Purpura Sharif, and she has studied also the debates that Munshi Meherullah had with Sheikh Jamiluddin. When Meherullah died in 1907, a pall of grief descended on the villages of Jessore and Nadia, and laments were expressed in Calcutta newspapers such as Mihir o Sudhakar. In addition to having a network of articulate followers in rural Bengal, Shah Abu Bakr Siddique had close ties with the major Calcutta newspapers, as Said Bahauddin was mentioning, such as Mihir o Sudhakar, Muhammadi, Islam Darshan, and Muslim Hitoishi. It was at the turn of the 20th century that the Pir of Purpura Sharif was poised to play a leading role in educational efforts within Muslim society. The economic context was provided by the waning of the Zamindar's rent offensive and the passage in 1885 of the Bengal Tenancy Act, which gave occupancy rights, security of tenure, and moderation of rent. However, by the end of the century, the extensive frontier of cultivation in East Bengal was reached, triggering the migratory movement from densely populated districts like Mymensingh to Assam. The peasantry located on the cusp of stability and uncertainty would be Purpura's constituents. The death in 1884 of Naya Mian, the successor of Dudu Mian as leader of the Faraizi movement, had left a leadership void that could be filled. To be sure, there had been prior movements of reform in the field of education, both in North India and in Bengal. Syed Ahmad Khan had set up his famous Aligarh College in 1875, and Shibli Nomani broke away from Aligarh in 1894 to establish the Nadwatul Ulama in Lucknow. Nawab Abdul Latif in Bengal urged Muslims to solve their social and educational problems through his Mohammedan Literary Society of Calcutta, established in 1864. The society invited Maulvi Karamat Ali of Jaunpur, who had split from the Tariqa-e-Muhammadi to form his own movement called Tayini to identify, to address its members in 1870. Nawab Abdul Latif passed away in 1893. Syed Amir Ali's National Mohammedan Association, founded in 1877, also played a major role in the educational sphere until his departure for London in 1904 left it bereft of leadership. In any case, Nawab Abdul Latif and Syed Amir Ali's organizations had appealed primarily to the urban elites and did not enthuse the subaltern classes in rural areas. The network of madrasas patronized by Pir Abu Bakr Siddique had a wider and deeper reach in the Mufassil towns and villages. Bhai Girish Sen's Bengali translation of the Quran in 1882 was a landmark event in the history of Bengal. From the turn of the 20th century, the messengers of Purpura Sharif set out on a mission to assert the imperative of spreading education through the medium of the mother tongue, Bengali. In this task, they had a supporter with power and pelf in Nawab Ali Chaudhry. Educational associations proliferated in various districts such as Rajshahi and Pabna in the first decade of the 20th century. After the 1905 partition was rescinded in 1911, Pir Abu Bakr Siddique advocated a combination of religious instruction with Western education through a balance between old scheme and new scheme madrasas. Sometimes he went against the majority opinion among Bengali Muslims, for example, in his opposition to the boycott of colonial educational institutions during the non-cooperation and Khilafat movement of 1919 to 1922. During the 1920s and 1930s, Pir Abu Bakr Siddique played a constructive role in the expansion of education for Muslims and the establishment of new institutions. He was a member of the Muslim Education Advisory Committee chaired by Abdul Momin and served with distinction alongside such luminaries as Fazlul Haq and Abdullah Soravardi. In a very significant address to students delivered in the Albert Hall on September 16, 1933, which was mentioned in passing by Sayyid Bahauddin, he urged Muslim youth to pursue the study of engineering, agriculture, law, and medicine according to their aptitude. So it would be entirely appropriate if Alia University is able to set up a medical college under its rubric. Grounded in religious rectitude, Muslims had to gain mastery over subjects of contemporary relevance. Pir Abu Bakr Siddique may also be given indirect and partial credit for the establishment of two major institutions of higher learning in this part of Calcutta, Islamia College and Lady Brabourne College, with which the name of Fazlul Haq is inextricably intertwined. While making important practical contributions to educational reform, Pir Abu Bakr Siddique was in essence a spiritual guide and as such served as Allah's vessel for miracles. Of the many accounts we have of his Kashf and Karamat, the one that appeals to me most is the case of the boy from Ichakhali who had lost his speech. After conferring his blessings on him, the Pir of Purpura Sharif advised him to give the call for Azan the next morning. As soon as he attempted to do so, the boy recovered his power of speech. I interpret this story as a metaphor for Pir Abu Bakr Siddique's remarkable ability to give voice to the voiceless. To the vexed question, can the subaltern Muslims speak? He had given a categorical answer, yes, we can. And the language spoken was Bengali. In the 21st century, as the Muslims of West Bengal and India struggle to gain equal access to education, employment, housing and credit, we need to remember the socio-religious reform movements and their leaders in the 19th and 20th centuries. As I have been saying in the context of the presidency bicentennial, we should seek inspiration from the past, but not remain prisoners of the past. It is incumbent on contemporary reformers of Muslim society to ensure equal rights for women in every sphere, and especially in the field of modern education. The need of the hour is the all-embracing equality. Last in 1939, there was an outpouring of grief, and the whole of Bengal mourned his loss. Most of the poems composed on the sad occasion were in the form of laments. However, let me conclude with one, composed by Muhammad Abdul Hamid of Nadia, titled Bongher Peer, that captured the lasting legacy of this great spiritual leader, Pir Abu Bakr Siddique. Bongher Peer he Abu Bakr, কি দিয়া শোধিব তোমার দান, কাতর মনের কাতর কাহিনী ছাড়া কিছুই নাহিক আর। জান্নাত হইতে তাজা শাহাদ সতত করিও ধরায় দান, বঙ্গ কাঙাল ভক্তি নিচয় পরাণ ভরিয়া করিবে পান। প্রথম লাইনটি আরেকবার পড়ছি। বঙ্গের পীর হে আবু বকর, কি দিয়া শুধিব তোমার ধার, কাতর মনের কাতর কাহিনী ছাড়া কিছুই নাহিক আর। জান্নাত হইতে তাজা শাহাদ সতত করিও ধরায় দান, বঙ্গ কাঙাল ভক্তি নিচয় পরাণ ভরিয়া করিবে পান। অনেক ধন্যবাদ।